I salute all who've been involved, the students with whom I've met, the panel of mediators whom as I mentioned, worked all through the night, and literally hundreds on this campus and this community who've cared and who've been involved, and who I now join with these students in asking to help us together make this a reality. We can agree, but it takes a community, not just today and the intensity of this moment, but next week and next month and through the years ahead to make this a reality. Cultural diversity is and will be an integral part of this university. And for that, I am proud, and I know all of us in this university will be proud.
Most students at the University of Vermont don't face racism every day, but they were confronted with it in the spring of 1988 when minority students took over the offices of the president. They demanded an end to the overt and institutional racism on their campus. President Kaur himself admitted in a memo to the campus following the takeover, quote, "Our record in recent years has not been impressive." He noted a drop in black undergraduates from a high of 70 in the mid-70s to 40 in 1988. Also in 1985, the number of minority faculty had remained constant for 10 years, a meager 11. To top it off, Kaur added that there had been very little activity in adding courses and programs that represented the richness and diversity of subject matter embraced in the minority experience. The entire campus struggled with racism in a way it hadn't since the end of Cakewalk. Cakewalk consisted of fraternity members imitating dances which black slaves were forced to perform for their masters.
I came here in 1966, and one of the first things that happened to me was that one of my newfound friends on the campus invited me to Cakewalk. I didn't even know what it was. But in thinking about going, I began to read about it and was so upset by the whole business that obviously I didn't go. On the other hand, there were only two black people on the campus at that time, Jack Clemens and I. And neither of us, of course, would in any way participate in that kind of activity. However, there also was a substantial number of white faculty members who thought that that Cakewalk was derogatory also, and a movement began about that time in '67 or so to rid the campus of Cakewalk. This ties in, of course, with the need for cultural pluralism on the campus, because it is my belief that many white people do not understand the whole concept of racism. Whether or not they are racist, they don't understand it. And part of their being on a campus such as this would dictate that they in fact become educated about social issues like this, so that they can become anti-racist, so that they can work to make a better society out of all this. And key to all this, as a matter of fact, or one of the keys, is cultural pluralism. We have to bring cultural pluralism to this campus so that there is an interchange among all of us, so that we can learn from each other and not just from some textbooks and so forth. So there is an inherent value to the education of everyone of cultural pluralism.
And I just want to say that as a president and member and faculty of this university and president of the Black and Third World Educators, we totally support what the students are doing and what they are presenting to the central administration. And I ask you all to rally around the flagpole on an issue that is most important at this university. When I confront my classes day in and day out, and I see no black and very few minority faces year after year, and when I experienced 1 year, 4 years ago, when not one black graduated from this university, then I begin to question, why am I still here? But I know why I'm still here, because I want to be here. But I also want to be able to teach non-whites as well at this university. So I'm just saying it, and I just want to quit now because I know you're cold, but I just want to say this one statement. I know what people are going to say. Why aren't there more black minority students, minority administrators, minority faculty, and other racial minorities here at the university? They're going to say it's too cold up here. But do you know what? I'm from Detroit area, and there's got 500,000 black people in Detroit. It is cold in Detroit. It is cold in Chicago, and it's cold in Minnesota, and it's cold in Alaska. So that is no excuse. And it's cold in Montreal. So that is tired of excuses. That is all I want to say. And keep up the fight.
Folks, yeah, we're gonna occupy this building in about 2 minutes. We're gonna lock the doors.
There's no sense in alienating our staff, and we might agree with your cause.
Who are the leaders?
We're all the leaders.
I'd like to have some assurances from you with regard to your behavior while you're occupying this. You're giving those informally. Can you do to be more formally? What is it that you will do and won't do while you're...
We promise not to burn down the place. Promise not to shit on the floors. We promise not to scream at the window honky. We promise not to beat up small white kids. We promise not to beat up white kids.
Free access to his office. We said he'd be given access once, and then it's negotiable for more access.
I do not understand why you're saying that.
Part of an occupation means no business as usual. We're going to stop your business until you look at our demands and you listen to what we're saying. And finally, we've been silenced for so long, you're going to listen to us. And that's what it means. It doesn't mean you can go in your office whenever you want, come and go. You might as well just stay here and do your work. This is an occupation. We're here to make a statement.
It is not able to continue. It is not able to continue those pivotal discussions. Your action in taking over the suite does violate the university's clearly pronounced policy on freedom of expression and dissent. You are substantially disrupting the normal affairs of the university. I'm sure you know that, but I'm also sure it's my responsibility to clarify to you that is true. And I realize that you are doing it because you believe that this violation of the rules ethically is more important because of the nature of your cause. I don't accept that. I don't agree with it. There were alternatives. There are alternatives in good faith and good conscience. They have not in any way been completed. The president's requests of the officers of the university have been to stretch and to participate in these negotiations in every conceivable way. This occupation of the hall, of this suite, is not only in violation of the regulations and rules of the university, but it does not make it possible to continue to negotiate in the ways that the president has invested himself in to this point. I know you know that, but I need to say it. I appreciate your willingness on camera to allow me to come back in here tonight if the needs of the university require it. And I shall come and talk with any one of you and expect to be given access to my phone.
Dr. Hennessy departed, carrying with him a set of demands from the minority students. He later gave these demands to President Coor, who'd been out of town during the takeover. By Tuesday morning, Coor had agreed to meet with the students to discuss these demands. To stress their conviction, most of the minority students and some supporters began a hunger fast. In addition, the minority students asked their white supporters to remain outside in solidarity. Both the participants and the supporters of the occupation were prepared to stay until their demands were met. Many long hours of negotiations were about to begin.
To me, the action took place because there was a certain jarring of this scenario, of what was happening that needed to occur. There was an explosion that needed to happen.
The takeover was different from the past because we had our demands and we weren't going to give in. We've always, in the meetings, we just sat there and we would just talk and talk. And we would leave with this feeling of emptiness, like we just wasted 2 hours of doing nothing. We had to do something. So that's what that's why we had to take over.
After many hours of negotiations, we have come up with several agreements. Before we go into those, though, Coor is going to come and talk to you about that. But unfortunately, many of our major demands have not been met yet, so negotiations will go on tomorrow. We did get him to sign certain of the demands tonight, and we will reveal those later. But first, statement from Dr. Coor.
Thank you. It's been a long and productive session. I'm pleased we've made the progress we have. As just indicated, there remain some issues on which we'll have to have some continued discussions, and we'll begin that here at 10 tomorrow. But we have made, I think, significant progress on the basic set of issues before us, and I'm pleased with that. The spirit of the discussions, the content of the proposals themselves, I believe will make a significant first step toward bringing full cultural and racial diversity to this campus. I look forward to the continuing discussions tomorrow and believe they'll go forward in the same spirit of those we've had to this moment. So I thank all of you for being involved and all who've been so intensely and actively involved with me over these last several hours, actually over these last several days, and look forward to continuing in that spirit tomorrow. So thank you very much, and we'll see you then.
Problems, however, soon arose. When President Coor attended an emergency faculty senate meeting on Wednesday to address the faculty on the situation, he revealed details of the negotiations to the press that the students thought would remain behind closed doors. The students knew that the support of the faculty was crucial in their endeavor. Many of their demands dealt with areas such as curriculum and faculty hiring that, even if agreed upon by Coor, were meaningless without faculty support. Thus, they thought it was unfair that only President Coor's thoughts on the negotiations were heard.
In consideration of the fact that you, President Coor, have broken the trust and agreement that we've established concerning these negotiations by revealing to the press aspects of our private discussions, we have postponed our negotiations tentatively. Our commitment to these demands are only strengthened by this broken trust on revealing our discussions to the press. We've broken off negotiations at this point. We will resume when we have decided it's appropriate.
faculty, I think, felt, given the long history of attempts by the faculty at affirmative action that got nowhere because the administration would always drag its feet after the faculty passed positive resolutions in favor of it, that the faculty felt that nothing would move the administration short of something like what the students did, so that there was a strong sense of support for both the ends and the means used by the students to bring about the agreement. The sector of the faculty that seemed distressed by the agreement and objected in strenuous terms to the racism awareness program that was being proposed for every member of the campus to attend as a compulsory educational event. I think that sector of the faculty were the conservatives who historically have opposed any form of affirmative action and cultural diversity on the grounds that they suppose that to be a kind of reverse discrimination that operates to the disadvantage of the white males who dominated higher education throughout its history in the United States. So that those people were in effect protesting a program of race awareness that by their very protest it was clear they needed it more than anyone else in the room did. But they were also a predictable group of right-wingers who would always oppose affirmative action regardless of how the students had gone about eliciting such an agreement from the administration.
Some professors expressed concern specifically over the tactics employed by the students. Professor Daniels of the History Department, in a letter to the Burlington Free Press, declared that, quote, neither the students' right to protest nor the virtue of their goals are at issue here, but rather the coercive tactics and inflammatory ignorance expressed in this effort, both presently and potentially. Such methods may well prove counterproductive to the cause of racial understanding, end of quote. These sentiments, however, were not widely shared. In addition to the support of much of the faculty, over 2,000 students signed a petition in support of the occupation, and the City Council of Burlington passed a resolution in which it declared that, quote, let it be resolved that the City Council joins the UVM Faculty Senate, as well as numerous student and faculty groups at UVM and on campuses throughout New England, in supporting the actions and demands of the students occupying the university's administrative offices, end of quote. All of these groups realized that the demands presented to CORE were not new, that they'd been made many times before, but were simply ignored by the administration. No progress towards cultural diversity had been made at the University of Vermont.
There was no way, I can say that now, there was no way this action could have been taken place successfully if it had not been for all the people who were, to put it just idiotically, for lack of a better phrase, who were outside, who were sitting outside and working and supporting and fighting. And nobody would have been swayed. It would have been regarded as just a minority thing. These kids are making trouble. Well, it's one time when we were there, and it was spirits were running low, and things were very tension filled, and I think the depression was setting in, and I looked outside the window, and the Top Cats were filing in, and everyone was like, what's going on here? Because it's the Glee Club of UVM, and you think, what the hell is the Glee Club of UVM doing? And they got outside, and they gave a little impromptu show, a little impromptu kind of concert. And, I'm not going to assume errors and say why they did it or what they were doing. They were essentially, though, to me, they were supporting us, and they were giving their support by singing, outside the building, and it was one of the best feelings of that week.
Lord, they are so tired. let's go on. Working in a coal mine, going down and down. Working in a coal mine, somebody sit down. Working in a coal mine, going down and down. Working in a coal mine, somebody sit down. 5 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock. I'm up before the sun. When my work day's over, too late for having fun. I've been working in a coal mine, going down and down. Working in a coal mine, somebody sit down. Working in a coal mine, working in a coal mine, somebody sit down. Lord, we are so tired and hungry. How long can this song go on? Working, going, getting, working, somebody sit down, working, going, getting, working, hope somebody sit down.
There was a whole network of people on the outside, and we had many, many different roles to take on and play. Every single night we stood by and spent the night, at least 20 of us every night. Some nights there were up to 30 of us. And we held meetings so every night around dinner time, and at those meetings we decided some of the things that needed to be done and decided how to execute those things. And among the things that we did was, for instance, we had a rally that Friday, I believe. It's been some time now. And the rally was actually one of the biggest we've ever seen at UVM. There were, I'd say, 100, 150 people in attendance, and I actually called professors and speakers that morning to speak at the rally, and there was a lot of enthusiasm for what was going on and a lot of learning going on.
The history department used to list a course called Black History. It was last taught, up until a time I will mention to you in a moment, it was last taught in 1977. It stayed in the catalog, but it was never offered. 2 years ago, history came to the College of Arts and Sciences and said, we want to drop this course. They made a decision to drop the course with no input whatsoever from anyone who was a minority. And in Arts and Science faculty meeting, I used the term institutionally racist and drew astonished stares from history department faculty members. But that decision was, in fact, institutionally racist. It was literally a decision made by white people about a curriculum issue that concerned white and black people and concerned students.
I first found out about the protest in class. A friend of mine came and he mentioned to class that a bunch of students had occupied the president's office and were protesting for more minority recruitment on campus. So that was the general idea we got. After classes were done in the afternoon, a friend of mine and I went down to see what was going on. And we saw there's a lot of people there supporting, they were having meetings. And at first we were rather annoyed at the concept of taking over the president's office. We felt that actions like that at a university seemed to be a bit extreme. So we first got up a bunch of signs we put together that said, "Don't negotiate with hijackers." That was our, we went there to discuss what was going on with the people there and the people involved. And our main reason was we didn't like the idea of students electing themselves to take over the president's office at the university and basically dictate university policy on behalf of the other 7,990 or 88 or however many other students there were.
Negotiations resumed on Thursday, but the two parties could not come to an agreement on a number of key issues. The frustration of the protesters mounted, and in light of the fact that two of the hunger strikers already required medical attention, many wondered how long the occupation could continue. Moreover, Kaur had already indicated that should negotiations stall, he was prepared to end the occupation. To avoid a confrontation both inside and outside the offices, the students and President Kaur decided to appoint 3 faculty mediators. Time was running out.
If we agreed something. If I commit to something that's not legal, then it's void. And I won't knowingly do that, in part because I don't want to be involved in something that won't be legal, but also because I don't want to agree to something that I know can't work. I think that's just not right. Maybe it is time that we each ask someone to represent us, that we work on the documents, that we put it on a expedited and nonstop basis. Mediators can solve a lot of problems. They can work on language. They can pull language together. I wonder if it isn't time to do that.
The students initially nominated me to be their representative, and the administration nominated Larry McCrory, who's the Dean of Allied Health Sciences. We then agreed upon Frank Sampson as the third party to this mediation, as the third mediator. We then met by ourselves and discussed how we would conduct the mediation. Then we went and spoke to initially the students and then to the administration, and we then formulated some proposals as compromises and as mechanisms for resolving what we understood to be outstanding disputes between the two parties.
About 2 hours ago, we reached agreement on all of the points under discussion, and on the completion of that agreement, an agreement reached thanks to the skillful and extraordinary help of our panel of mediators, working all night long with all of us, all through the night, that I have signed the agreements that we have reached and will proceed immediately to put them into effect. The spirit of these negotiations, the common ground with which I think we all began. I and my colleagues in the administration, members of the faculty, and students who've been interested in this throughout, is a spirit I think we have preserved to date. They have been intense, serious, probing discussions where we allowed no difference to deter us, and where we searched always for a common way to express what was from the beginning, and I believe now clearly enshrined in our agreement, a common desire and now commitment to significantly increase cultural diversity and minority presence on this campus. I salute all who've been involved, the students with whom I've met, the panel of mediators whom as I mentioned, worked all through the night, and literally hundreds on this campus and this community who cared and who've been involved, and who I now join with these students in asking to help us together make this a reality. We can agree, but it takes a community, not just today and the intensity of this moment, but next week and next month and through the years ahead to make this a reality. Cultural diversity is and will be an integral part of this university. And for that, I am proud, and I know all of us in this university will be proud.
I guess a lot of people seemed kind of hesitant to go in with us, but in the end, I guess everybody pulled through for us. I guess some of the people were kind of, we were all scared. It's not like we were all, sure of what was going to happen. If people tell you that, we knew from the start what was going on, I guess I think we were all very scared, but it was something we believed in so much that I guess our belief just kept us going.
And the university might tell you that it voluntarily ended Cakewalk in 1969, but the truth of the matter is that it was ended only after a group of black St. Michael's College students were involved in a confrontation with a group of white fraternity students over Cakewalk in 1969, and the threat of violence was so severe that the university had to take extraordinary measures to call a special meeting of the Board of Trustees and abolish it. And at that time, This was during the presidency of Lyman Rowell, which was 3 presidents ago. The university trustees got together, wrung their hands, and said, it's time for the University of Vermont to play its role in creating a culturally diverse society. And they made a very aggressive commitment to recruit minority students. And they said this in the spring of 1969. So last night when I turned on the news and I saw that there were students sitting in at the president's office demanding improved minority recruitment, I felt I had entered a time warp. Nothing had changed. And I heard President Kaur saying, well, we'll sit down and negotiate what the university's commitment of minority recruitment will be. Well, folks, I got news for you. You don't have to ask them to do anything more than they committed to do in 1969. So my suggestion to the students who are sitting in the president's office is to dig up the resolutions that the trustees of this university made in the spring of 1969 and simply ask this administration to do it. It's all the question, it's just to do it.
I want to displace another myth. This is not just for people of color, because what we do good for people of color will benefit everybody. Everybody. If we can't treat one group of people good, I think we're going to have that tendency to treat other people the same way. And that's got to happen. So when you hear someone in a classroom go, oh, there's just a bunch of white kids in the school, first of all, tell them about 90% of the kids here are white anyway, and tell them that racism is not a black problem, it's a problem for everybody.
Across the lines, who would dare to go under the bridge, over the tracks, separates whites from blacks. Choose sides, run for your lives. Tonight the riots begin. Back streets of America, they kill the dream of America. Little black gets assaulted, no reason why. News prints a story, racist tempers fire. Next day starts a riot, knives and guns are drawn. 2 boys get killed, 1 white boy goes blind. Across the lines, who would dare to go under the bridge?